Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams, and our focus this morning is on several nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to making a positive change in our community. My first guest is the president and founder of Pastors United, an organization committed to seeking God's guidance for organizing and mobilizing for solutions to the social, economic, and spiritual problems facing the urban Milwaukee community. It's a pleasure to welcome Reverend Greg Lewis, who is also the assistant pastor at St. Gabriel's Church of God in Christ. Good morning, Reverend Lewis.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, glad to be here.
And I am eager to hear more about Pastors United and your mission.
Well, you know, we got started during the recall elections in 2010. You know, I was hired by an organization to go out and get churches involved in getting out the vote, you know, simply getting out the vote. And while I was doing that, I was talking to the pastors and I just asked them two simple questions. Well, one simple question with a couple of answers I needed is, are you tired of being, you know, frustrated? Sure. Are you tired of being powerless? Yeah. I said, so why don't we all work together and have some power and resolve some of these frustrations by working and building together. And we called a meeting at MATC one Saturday morning. We had 300 faith leaders in one setting at a breakfast. And we took a count of who was there, and we also did a survey. And we just asked them what things were important to them. And the number one issue was our family structures. And I was kind of surprised about that because usually it's something else. And number two was health and wellness. And I really was surprised about that because it usually would be something else. And number three was economic development. And number four was community control, crime and incarceration. And number five was the educational facilities, our schools, and number six was civic engagement. And then we added a couple. We added evangelism and prayer because we're faith leaders. But so we just took those initiatives and we started working together to try to, you know, resolve some of these really, really deadly issues. And I mean that deadly because I'm always saying, you know, we're in critical condition here in Milwaukee in our community. You know, we're on life support. We're in intensive care. We're on a breathing machine.
It's true.
And so I'm always saying that we don't breathe for ourselves. And if somebody else would cut off that breathing machine, you know, our community would be dead. You know, we don't have businesses. We don't own homes. We don't own land. We don't control our institutions. We don't control banking. We don't control medical facilities. We don't control anything, and it's really, we're in dire straits. So, you know, the faith community is the most organized business in our community, and God just, you know, pulled it all together. I was working with a lot of the faith leaders here, you know, you name them. We worked together. We had a huge press conference down in downtown Milwaukee at the Zeidler building in front of the stairs. And after the press conference, you know, one of the leaders, Bishop McClellan, he said, well, we need to keep this together. You know, he just, you know, he said, well, Greg, why don't you keep it together? And that's when I started organizing. And we just started originally just getting out to vote. But then we started to see that we could do other things in the community. And we just want to be relevant, really, Andrea. We just want to be relevant. We want people to understand and know that we could do something for ourselves. You know, we don't have to keep begging people. You know, we have enough money in our community. If we all pooled our resources, we could probably make changes, and you do need money. And that's how we got started with our Pastors United group. And now we're up to over 500 faith leaders and partners.
Wow.
And, you know, it's a very quiet organization. People always ask me, you know, well, who's in it? I'm like, man, well, you know, I can't really.
Too many people today, right?
Well, no, not just that. You know, the other thing is when you start to give people your list, you know, people start to bother, and you know, you want to call them, and you always want to ask. You know, we got insurance people, we got all kind of people selling things, and some people need to be protected because, you know, as strange as this might seem, you know, some pastors really do need protection because, they receive, funding from different sources, and sometimes being civically engaged could cause problems. And you really don't want to cause problems for folks because they have to make a living. But you do want to make sure that you work to be a change agent. So we just say, well, we got these members, well, you can believe it or not, but at some point, it's going to be quite obvious because we're just scratching the surface right now. We haven't really done anything. Because we have not come to be tight as we ought to be, and that's a work in progress, and it just takes a lot of patience and a lot of work and organizing, and people have to see solid results. You got to see some positive things going on. You got to raise some money and all those kind of things. And then when that starts to happen, things change. And in Ephesians 4:16, it talks about how people come together, and it builds a power that's more powerful than anything. It's called love, and that's more powerful than any energy that we can establish here on earth, because that love comes from God, and us working together, we certainly become, comrades and companions, and we start to understand each other and care about each other. We build this process of building this power, and we start to use it once it's solidified. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but that's what we're working on, and I see it happening every day. We meet every week. At Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church at 10 o'clock on Wednesday afternoons every week. And we've been doing that for 3 years. And every week we have about 30 or 40 leaders at a meeting, and we don't even call anybody to be there. They just come. So this is something from God, certainly, because I could never have done this on my own because nobody even knew my name. And every bishop and every leader I got in every door, and they all said this would be a good thing, and they said, hey, just tell everybody I'm with you. And it's really done kind of quiet. It probably won't be quiet now since I'm here. But,
I've known about you, all along, and that's why I thought it was a great idea to have you here, to have people at home better understand what it is that you're doing. And we have to be careful when we have the pastors here because y'all do mini sermons. So.
Oh, yeah.
I got to get in there when I can.
I'm sorry.
No, there's no need to apologize. I absolutely love it. And when you talk about these 8 focus areas, you did say that your number 1 priority is family structure.
Oh, family structure.
We're right around this whole Father's Day holiday, and there are so many young people out there who have no father figure in their home or in their life period. It's really important for that element to exist, whether it be a mentor or someone who they can turn to and feel like they have someone who cares, that is that male figure. There's a lot of moms out there who, are balancing it all, but it really takes a man to fill a man's shoes. So when we look at statistics dealing with that, only 28% of children live in a 2-parent home. And so it's been established that homes without a father contribute to neighborhood destabilization, juvenile criminality, and an increase in black murder and robbery. So when people ask the question, why do we keep seeing crime? Why do we keep seeing car thefts, things of this nature? It could very well lead back to those statistics of being in a 1-parent home.
Certainly, and that was our major initiative, and and that's why I was so proud of how we established that number 1 initiative, because we just asked the question, what's most important to you? And you would have thought it would have been, education or economics or something, but it was, the family structure, because we know the key, in the faith community, we know that the man is the leader of the family. Even in our Bible, we talk about, the man being the leader of the structure of families and organization, and all those things being in place so that we can have a solid building block, so that we can build generations and generations and generations. And if you take that man out of the equation, you have dysfunctionality, and that's what's happening. And I hate to, I don't want to go into anything too deep because I don't want to start preaching, but
it's all right.
But when we talk about, you know, the letter, the Willie Lynch letter, you know, even in the Bible, you know, and the book of Exodus, you know, they talk about, you know, the Pharaoh, what did he want to do? He wanted to get rid of all the firstborn males because, you know, even in the Bible, we understand that the way you destroy a people is you destroy the family, and you do that by taking the male out of the leadership role in those families, and that's what we need to get back to.
All right, and recently members of Milwaukee's Common Council, led by President Ashanti Hamilton, announced a series of actions that they believe will make the city of Milwaukee safer, and it's a three-pronged approach to fighting crime. One is a call for 500 fathers and father-like figures. We've talked about the need for that in the community. 25 churches to adopt their neighborhoods, and then a plan to replace up to 331 retired MPD personnel. What role is Pastors United playing in this three-pronged approach to fighting crime and making the city safer?
Well, we've established an adopt-a-block plan. And we are just asking the church members and the pastors to just go out into the neighborhoods where your church is located and just talk to the people. But before you even do that, just go out there on the weekend and just pick up paper. You know, have something on that they can see you doing it, so they come up and talk to you and say, hey, what are you doing? What is this about? And you tell them, I'm from this church. You know, you can invite them in, but we're not going out. This is not true evangelism, but we do want you to come to church now, don't get me wrong, but we don't want to force people into a religion or any Christianity or anything. We want people to come, you know, of course, but we want to just have a relationship with our community. So we've started that adopt-a-block plan, and not only is it going out and cleaning up and talking to the folks, but also these houses that are in that community. And the alderman, the Common Council president, he had a house donated to our organization. That's the first time we had a house out of 14 houses. That was the first one. And we have rehabbed that house, and we have one of our members living in it. And that's where we started the rehabbing houses. So now the Adopt-a-Block plan, not only do you get to help make relationships in your community a little bit better with the church, you also are offered a home, a house. Now, when they give you the house, you just have to have the money to buy the supplies. But the city is going to offer the labor costs for that house, and that house can be used for anything the church chooses. They can sell it, they can rent it, they can make it a community neighborhood home. And that's the Adopt-a-Block plan. And we've been working on this for about 3 years, Andrea. And
that is wonderful.
Yeah, we really have, yes.
And I mean, it's really baby steps. And like you said, you know, as time goes on, things grow, people catch on, and people want to be a part of what's positive and good. Before we run out of time, I want to give you an opportunity to quickly talk about one of your other initiatives through Pastors United, and that's your credit restoration. That's very important when you talk about people being economically secure and financially stable to do for themselves.
See, this is number one in my heart, because I think economics is the number one issue in our community. We don't own anything. So what we've done is we've taken 30 of our leaders, and we've taken the money that we have made with these houses, and we've paid for them to get their credit restored. We have about 4 or 5 people. We started this 2 years ago. We have 4 or 5 people with 800 credit scores, and some of them 700 and 600, and they all had really low credit score. Now, you know, 90% of the people in our churches have bad credit or no credit, and that's a travesty. So we said we want to get to the root of this situation, and we got to start somewhere. So we're sowing a seed and showing people that you can develop into having good credit, have a credit line, and start to, understand how to do business in our society if you would just follow the directions that we give you. And you can't deviate, and you can't stop being patient, because it's a process. It takes about 6 to 12 months to just get everything negative off your credit score. I'm getting into something too that I shouldn't get into. But anyway, the important fact is that we're turning lives around with our credit restoration, and that is so important because we need those folks to be eligible to buy the houses that we're rehabbing.
Absolutely, it all goes hand in hand,
Yes, it
and
does.
that's just the tip of the iceberg of what it is that
It
you're
really
doing
is.
through your organization. So I encourage people to go to your website and check that out. We'll put it up there on the screen. And thank you so much for coming by.
Is that it? We're done?
Time goes by really fast, I
man.
tell you,
Oh.
but I appreciate you stopping
Hey,
by.
okay,
We'll have to
thank
have
you.
you come back.
Thank
Reverend
you.
Greg Lewis
All right.
is the president and founder of Pastors United and also serves as the assistant pastor at St. Gabriel's Church of God in Christ. For more information on anything we've discussed, you can log on to pastorsunitedwi.org. And when we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll turn our attention to an organization that evolved from a 2-day training session held 11 years ago. We'll find out more about the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative right after this.